All right, well, welcome back. And what we're going to be talking about today is how to determine two solutions given a trig ratio, and we're trying to find that angle. Trying to find the angles in degrees and in radians. Now I have some success criteria right here, some steps that will make your life hopefully a little bit easier that we're going to use to try to help us figure this out. Um, First off, let's try an example right here. So the first thing we want to determine is, do we have a basic trig ratio? Now, in this problem, it says we can't use our calculator. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, you're not going to use your calculator in any of these problems. And so I'll just tell you that it will be a basic trig ratio of 30, 60, 90, or 45, 45, 90 degree triangles. Now that's important because when we're doing this, we're going to first find out, we're going to use the inverses of sine, cosine, and tangent to help us solve these. And in order to do that, we have to put this into sine, cosine, and tangent first. So in this one, we have our secant, which is 1 over cosine of an angle, and that equals 2. If I want to change this into cosine, I have to flip both sides. All right, take the reciprocal of both sides, and I will have 1 over 2. We can do that in every single one. We have cotangent, which is 1 over tangent of theta, and that's going to equal negative square root of 3. Well, what is that? I have to take the reciprocal of both sides, so I'm going to have tangent of theta. All right, and that's going to equal the square root, a negative square root of, or 1 over the negative square root of 3. Okay, and then tangent obviously is itself, it's okay. All right, so what we're going to look now is, because we can't use a calculator, all right, we're going to find now what the quadrant of each angle is. So we're going to find all the quadrants, okay? Where are these angles, these two angles located? So to determine these two angles, well, we have to think of cosine. What is cosine? Cosine is x, sine is y. And so basically we're saying x, because this ratio is positive, x will be positive as well. So x we're looking for where it will be greater than 0. Well, what quadrant is x greater than 0? Well, if you look at right here, x is positive in the first quadrant, and x is positive in the fourth quadrant. And so we're really looking for an angle in this first quadrant. I'll call that angle 1. And we're going to be looking for another angle over here, and we'll call this angle 2. Now the next thing is we're going to use trigonometric inverse to find a reference angle. So we're going to do the reference angle here. So if I wanted to take and find this angle, I could take the inverse trig, or take the inverse cosine of 1/2 and put that in my calculator, but I can't use my calculator, so I got to figure this out by hand. So one thing we can do to figure this by hand is I'm going to create a, all right, triangle here. I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to find this reference angle. Okay, this reference angle, which happens to be the first angle in the first quadrant, which is a cube. And we have a ratio of 1 and 2. So 1 is adjacent to this angle, and 2 is the hypotenuse. Well, a 1 and a 2, there has to be a radical 3. You can use Pythagorean theorem to figure this out. But this is referring to a 30, 60, 90 triangle. The 30, 60, 90 triangle, if you recall, the sides that are opposite of that, if you look up here, is going to be 1, radical 3, and 2. So what is opposite the radical 3? Well, that is going to be the 60-degree angle. So we know that this reference angle is 60 degrees, or if we want to do it in radians, it's going to be pi over 3. Pi over 3. Okay? So the question is, how do we find our second angle? Well, our second angle, this is the reference angle, and they happen to be the same. They will be the same. So that's going to be 60 degrees as well. Well, how do you find out this second angle? Well, the second angle, I'm going to put it in a different color so you can see it. The second angle starts here and goes almost all the way around. And we're just taking out this 60 degrees. So how do we figure out the second angle? Well, angle number 2 is really going to be 360 degrees minus the reference angle, which is 60. And so that's going to equal 300 degrees. Or, all right, we could take 2 pi, because that's 360 degrees in radians, minus pi over 3. And that's going to give us, all right, 5 pi's over 3. So we have an angle here of pi over 3, angle 1, and angle 2. All right, like that. Cool. And we find our two exact solutions. So once again, find the quadrant, find the reference angle, use the reference angle to find all the other angles, and then solve using special right triangles or whatever you got to do with this. All right, now let's try tangent. Now it says tangent here, and if you recall, tangent is opposite over a hypotenuse, or sorry, adjacent. I apologize, that's TOA. All right, I'm sorry, adjacent. So, or sine over cosine. Sine over cosine, remember, is going to be x over y. So we know x is positive, and y is positive, x is negative, and x is going to be, or y is going to be negative here. So where do we have negative values? Well, first quadrant, positive over positive, positive, okay? Because remember, we're looking, this is the same thing as sine over cosine, which we know is y over x. So we're comparing y over x, and we have a negative value here, negative value, okay? And so how do we make y over x negative? Well, that appears to be here because we have a positive over negative, and over here in the fourth quadrant because we have a negative over positive. And so we're looking for angle 1, and we're looking for angle, boom, angle number 2, right there. So to find our angles, what we could do is we could actually take and find the inverse of these. Oh, I'm not going to keep on doing this. Sorry. Keep on doing that. But I keep on having to make this smaller. I could take an inverse tangent on my calculator, and I could put 1 over the negative square root of 3. And that could help me out, but I can't use that. So what I'm going to do instead is actually I'm going to create a right triangle to help me figure out what this reference angle is. And I can do this in any quadrant I want. It's going to give us the same thing because if you look right here, notice how these are vertical angles. So I'm going to find this reference angle. That will help me figure out angle 1 and angle 2. The reference angle, we have tangent, which is y over x, or opposite. So my opposite side is going to be 1. My adjacent is going to be, in this case, negative square root of 3. Over here, this would be, opposite would be negative 1. This would be positive square root of 3. Okay, so it doesn't matter which order you have it in. And we have 2 here because of a 30-60-90 triangle. Well, this is actually what I just said, 30-60-90. What is opposite to 1? That is going to be the 30-degree angle. All right, 30 degrees. So how do we figure out angle number 1? Well, angle number 1, if you recall, is actually an obtuse angle. And so if we want to find angle 1, we can take 180 degrees, because that's the whole thing, and subtract the reference angle, which we know is going to equal 30 degrees. Together, that's going to equal 150 degrees. 150 degrees. Or we know it's going to be 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 6. Over 6. We can also go over here and we can find angle number 2. Angle number 2, because once again we can do 360 degrees minus the 30 degrees, which is our reference angle, and that's going to give us 330 degrees. 330 degrees. Or we can know that it's going to equal 11 pi over 6. 11 pi over 6. Cool beans? Cool beans. All right. Let's look at one more. We have tangent. All right, tangent. When we're looking at tangent, once again, same thing over here. It's already in there. Well, let's figure out what this is going to be. Well, it's equal to 1. Tangent is also positive. So where we have positive, well, remember this tangent is y over x. So where is y over x positive? That's going to be positive here, first quadrant. And we also have negative over a negative, which makes it positive, so it's going to be a third quadrant. So we're looking for an angle 1 in the first quadrant, and we can use this reference angle here, all right, and find out angle number 2, which is in the third quadrant. So what do we do here? Going through the same thing. Find the reference angle. What's the reference angle? Well, if we look at this, we have a reference angle because we have a ratio of 1 to 1. 1, 1, and square root of 2 appears to be the answer because it's 1 over 1. So we have 1 opposite, 1 adjacent, square root of 2. That's for a 45, 90-degree right. Okay. And so what is opposite that? Well, that is a 45, as I said before, 45-degree angle. And so angle number 1 is 45 degrees. Or what we know is pi over 4. Pi over 4. We can find angle number two, because once again, we see that angle number 2. Now, unlike the other ones, in the third quadrant, we're now going to take 180, and we have to add our reference angle, because this is 45 degrees right here. This is the 45-degree angle. That's our reference angle. And so we're going to add 45 degrees to that, and that's going to give us 225 degrees. Okay, 225 degrees. Or if we want in radians, that's going to be 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4. And that is how we can find, all right, two exact solutions using quadrants and reference angles and without our calculator. Key thing is, remember, all right, the ratios of a 30, 60, 90 are 1 radical 3 and 2. 45 is 1 to the 1 to the radical 2. Come on now. All right, in helping you find your solutions. All right, hope this helps you out, and good luck and God bless in the rest of your problems.